Welcome to our trash revolution.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
Live from the Poly Market studio in LA. It's the Young Turks.
Drop it. Nobody watching understands what just happened. But
What
I'm having
happened?
you know what? I'll mention it in the social break. Stick around for the social break to find out the emotional, psychological context of what just happened. I'm John Adirola. Jordan Ewell is in studio. Francesca Fiorentini is too good to make the drive. How is it going? One and all. Francesca hosts the Situation Room. How are you both doing? Francesca, thank you for being here.
I had a show, I had my show just before this that I hope everyone watches, youtube.com/FrannyFio. That's where I was, so I'm sorry I'm not there. Jordan's not wearing a hat, and I think we need to just mention that up top.
You know what? There's been something about Jordan since he got here that's been throwing me off, and I completely forgot that that's what it is. He also is not wearing a hoodie. The combination of the two things, I'm honestly not sure if it's him.
Well, when I was getting ready and I was, showering, and my fiance says to me, "You have such nice hair. Stop wearing a hat. If you love me, you won't wear a hat tonight." And it's like, oh my God.
Whoa.
If you're gonna resort to that, I guess I have no choice.
Yeah, so he brought one just in case he decided at the last minute to wear it, but as of right now, he's not. And you do have nice hair, so good decision. Good
Yeah,
decision.
usually it's kind of a, it's kind of the gentleman whose hairs are leaving, who generally rock a hat. But you, Jordan, that's a lot of hair too.
He does.
It's too much.
Yeah. Well, too much hair, maybe too much news. Stick around to find out. We do have some interesting things to talk about. Tim Walz is taking some big swings at Donald Trump and JD Vance. We're gonna be starting off the show with that in just a few. We're gonna be talking about the Al Smith dinner, this traditional pre-election Catholic-focused fundraiser / roast. And there were some good lines. There were some jokes and attacks that I think didn't quite hit. So we're going to laugh at the good lines. We're gonna laugh at the people making the bad lines. Overall, it should be a lot of fun for us. And then we've got a whole bunch of corruption in the latter half of the first hour. So everyone prepare yourself for that. But also coming up in the second hour, Yasmin Ali Khan's gonna be leading us. Sharon Reed, J.R. Jackson are gonna be here. It's a pretty amazing power panel. And I'm not gonna say what it is about it that's so different that might be like upping the game a little bit, but there is something different today. But don't worry, he'll be back next week. Okay, everybody, why don't we jump into our first story?
Wow.
What's going on with me?
Good luck on the unemployment line, John.
Anyway,
Yeah.
That's it. I want to get into carpentry, and I think now is the time. In any event, let's jump into our first story, starting with this.
When my mom looks for that Social Security deposit to be made in her bank account, that's how she's going to feed herself. That's how she's going to get things done. He doesn't give a damn if his Social Security check comes or not. So let's be very clear. If any of our relatives or anyone gives us this, if they tell us, well, Donald Trump's understand us, he does not understand. He does not understand.
So that is obviously Tim Walz. He's in North Carolina. It is the first day of early voting there. North Carolina is a state that several months ago seemed to have entirely slipped away from the Democrats, but now with Kamala Harris and with Tim Walz, it seems like a possible pickup, and it would be pretty important for the Democrats if they did. And so he's there, and he's making some strong attacks against Donald Trump and also JD Vance. We're gonna be covering all of that. The focus really is Donald Trump does not understand regular people. He does not understand their struggles. He doesn't understand their life. And that should probably go without saying. Donald Trump was born a wealthy man. He has been wealthy his entire life. He has never lived a normal life economically in terms of work, in terms of pay, in terms of the struggle. But Tim Walz, I think, is a pretty good messenger for this. And so we're gonna cover a little bit more of what he said, but let's start off with him talking here about Project 2025.
But I want to be fair. Not everybody thinks the same way you do, and Donald Trump and JD Vance have a little bit different ideas. And I'll tell you what, they know exactly what they're doing with Project 2025. I was telling President Clinton, Donald Trump today is coming out. He's pretty worried about this. He said, no one associated with Project 2025 will be in my administration. Every damn one of them were in his administration. Every one of them. JD Vance says, I don't even know what that is. He wrote the foreword to the architect's book. Who wrote it? I've never written the foreword to somebody's book, but if I did, I'd sure the hell remember who they were. And they wrote that thing. I guarantee you that. So look, here's what's in that thing. Here's what's in it. Take away the Affordable Care Act. And look, this is the time now to talk to your neighbors. Talk to your relatives who are voting the other way, or your brother, whoever it might be. We all got them. But they will tell you, well, I just don't like Donald Trump's character or some of the things he says. I like his policies. This is where you jump in and say, which policies? Taking away your health care. He said he had a concept of a plan after 9 years. Then Vance tried to explain it. I told JD, you should go back to the concept because your explanation is terrible about what it's going to do.
You know, I think Tim Walz got a lot of criticism coming out of the debate. Like, he had gone into the debate, everyone expects he's good at doing media. The debate didn't go so well, but no, he's a pretty good messenger, I think, overall. I liked a lot of those lines. The concept thing was good. The forward thing was good. It seems weird that at this point, he still hasn't written the forward to a book. Let me just offer my novel, Shadow of the Mouse Thief, is probably not what you were expecting. Middle grade fantasy, it's about a mouse going on adventure, but I wouldn't say no if you wanted to write the forward. In any event, we're gonna turn to Social Security in a moment, but what do you think so far?
You know, on the debate point, what we saw was the misstep by the Harris campaign holding Walz back. What we just saw was the Walz we saw in the weeks leading up to his announcement and in the immediate aftermath. He was fiery, he was dynamic, people liked him, and then out of nowhere he just disappeared. They, put him in the basement, I guess, like Biden, and they held him back, they clipped his wings, don't say the weird thing, stop with the weird stuff. No, this clearly works, it's why people wanted him to begin with, and you're seeing that. Now on the debate stage, this was in this period where they were trying to refine and think through every single little thing that he said, and he came off wonky, he stumbled, he was cold. Vance, who had been making the rounds in uncomfortable interviews for weeks, knew how to deflect, knew how to answer the tough questions, knew what to say and what not to say in moments where he could be cornered. With the exception of the very last question about who won in 2020, I think Vance outclassed him, but here he is. Walz is back to his original form, which is great. They need this in the final stretch.
Yeah, and way to use your white privilege, dude, okay? Just like coming out with the BS, SHIT, he said it. Like, if Kamala Harris had said that, I'd be like, oh, yeah, right? Like super unpresidential. But of course, every time, and this is what the right responds to. Let's be honest, I agree with Jordan. I mean, luckily nobody remembers the vice presidential debate, so it doesn't really matter. But, the whole well, we've got to play nice. Honestly, a lot of the so-called alphas really do respond to someone who's just gonna be forceful and tell it like it is. And you see, the politics are different, but Tim Walz right there, especially very disheveled, kind of on his give no more Fs vibe, gives a lot of Bernie. And I think that's why people like Bernie, because I'm just gonna explain something very directly to you and I'm not gonna couch it in consultant speak. And I think that's when he shines. And I really do love, especially that line of the substance of what he said, which is, don't just focus on his character. Actually, his policies are also bad, which we don't actually really talk about. Even Kamala Harris doesn't really talk too much about how bad Trump's policies are.
Yeah, it's a great point. There aren't that many of them. I mean, certainly not that have been promised coming up. It's one of the reasons people are turning to Project 2025 to understand his agenda, because he doesn't talk much about his agenda. He talks a lot about how scary Guatemalans are and people from El Salvador and Haiti and all that. But other than that, not a lot of policy. And so, I think a lot of those points were very well done. Now, let's turn now to the comments Walz made about Social Security.
Look, Donald Trump called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. JD Vance said it was the impediment or the roadblock to fiscal sanity. Social Security doesn't add to our national debt, and we damn sure pay into it. So when my dad dies and I'm a teenager, I got a little brother in elementary school, a stay-at-home mom. It was Social Security survivor benefits that kept our family alive, kept us going on it. That's smart. So look, we hear this, and this is a tough state. We know how to do this stuff. So when they tell you, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, damn happy to do it. We just didn't have any boots. So Social Security is the boots. I guarantee you, if I would have had $400 million, I would be in better shape than he is and wouldn't be bankrupt.
Nice little hit there at the end. Again, to Francesca's earlier point, like, yeah, he really has dispensed with the like, there's a lot that we can agree on sort of thing. And I think that marries well with Harris's turn to focusing more on Donald Trump's fitness for the presidency, right. How unhinged he is, how unchecked he'll be, all of that. But there, Walz is using, like, he's mocking Trump, he's trying to trigger Trump, but he's also talking about how important these policies are and how both Donald Trump and JD Vance have a history of questioning whether these sorts of policies should ever exist. And we already know that, like, Senate Republicans are, like, never stop thinking about killing Social Security. All they really need is someone in the White House to play ball. And so I think people should really be worried about this particular ticket. What do you think?
Oh, Francesca, let's let you go first.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. No, I always think it's better when you're in the room, but it's all good. No, okay. I love that he's kind of proving JD Vance's point, and Donald Trump's point, which is like, yeah, if you didn't have Social Security, you would be dying in poverty and you wouldn't even be running as vice president. Damn it. That's why we need to get rid of Social Security. It's like perfectly encapsulated. What I also like about Walz and his attitude here and really focusing on the substance is that room is small. I mean, it's a gymnasium of a school. He's talking to organizers. These are people who in the next few weeks, whatever it is, 18 days, 17 days, are going to be knocking doors. They're going to be like working polls. They're going to, boots on the ground. This is the work they're doing. So he's got to fire them up. And I love that he's doing it in such a substantive way that really speaks to their intelligence and not just rah-rahing them, which I think too many candidates do. So if I were an organizer in North Carolina, if I were making calls, which a lot of people are, that would really energize me to get on the phone and do so. So
I think Walz is probably the best messenger for undercutting Trump's commitment to the working class. That's something he's rode, obviously, in 2016 to victory on. And there are a lot of people who believe him because he still somehow portrays himself as an outsider. And I think correctly, although he is part of it, frames the political elite in both parties as abandoning workers. And that's why you've seen shifts in places like the Rust Belt over the years, and shifting more conservative towards Trump because he can exploit a working class first message, never delivering on it, of course. But one of the main culprits, if you remember that clip, he was flanking Walz. It was Bill Clinton. I mean, Bill Clinton's trade policies, NAFTA, decimated the working class in places where I grew up. People don't like him, don't trust him. That's why they didn't trust Hillary. And I still think Hillary would have been a slightly better alternative to Trump on some things. I don't know. She was pushing the TPP that would have further decimated areas like the Rust Belt. In post-industrial America, they have a distrust for people like him. So I think it undercuts the message just aesthetically. He's obviously not front and center in that. Looks like he did speak. But when you see some union workers across the country, not all, of course, I don't even know if it's a majority, but if there are enough to switch because they don't trust them, that's concerning. And the Democratic Party still has this problem of being defined by that more of a globalist, TPP, NAFTA mindset on trade policy. Trump isn't the answer, but he can exploit that for electoral gain, and that's one thing I'm really concerned about.
Oh, I thought you were going to jump in. I think that we should probably, with time-wise, we're going to go on to one more clip. I know we've talked a lot about Tim Walz, but there's one area that I think, like, he's had a lot of attacks against Donald Trump. I think this area might be, I guess, the most fertile for attacks. So let's roll just a little bit more of Walz at that rally.
He doesn't know business, and he damn sure doesn't know the middle class. So look, and for all of you, I'm gonna be generous. We are all products of our past. When you grow up a middle-class kid in Oakland or in Butte, Nebraska, you care about Social Security. You care about these things. When you're sitting down in Mar-a-Lago and you tell your rich friends, you're rich as hell, I'm gonna give you a tax cut, it doesn't matter to them. And you know what? When my mom looks for that Social Security deposit to be made in her bank account, that's how she's gonna feed herself. That's how she's gonna get things done. He doesn't give a damn if his Social Security check comes or not. So let's be very clear. If any of our relatives or anyone gives us this, if they tell us, well, Donald Trump's understand us, that's he does not understand.
I love all the substance there. I also love how much energy Tim Walz is bringing on a day in which Donald Trump is now facing all of these questions about whether he has the physical stamina to even make it to election day, let alone to govern as president for 4 years. He's canceling all these events left and right. Tim Walz is going like a mile a minute. Like that was like if Ben Shapiro had any of the right policies, then it might look like that. But I think it's a great point. Donald Trump, it is amazing to me that he has been able to win over virtually any working class people. You talked about some of the ways that he weaponizes things the Democrats have done, and I think it makes sense that you would do that. But I mean, this is a guy who despises workers, despises paying them, and he doesn't even hide it like other Republicans do. He will talk to a group of people, many of the working class, and be like, oh man, don't you hate overtime? Oh, paying these peasants overtime, I just hate it. And he goes to rich billionaires, as we'll talk about, and he's like, I'm gonna give you benefit. You give me $1 billion, I'll cut all the regulations on you. And he talks to rich people, as Tim Walz said, and said, I'm gonna give you rich people a tax credit. Like he barely hides it at all, and they don't seem to have a problem with it. And look, to some extent, he does try to win over people who aren't already wealthy. So he'll throw out something like this with almost no thought. He'll say, that taxes on tips should be taken away. We'll have more to say about that. Or seniors should not pay tax on Social Security. And you know how much thinking he did about that? Exactly as long as it took to bleat that out. That's all. He hasn't really thought about it. And there's a lot of issues with it. Now, John Larson in my home state of Connecticut, he says one of the fatal mistakes is that it wouldn't make up for the revenue that would be lost. He comes out and says he's gonna have a tax cut, but doesn't say how he's gonna pay for it. In essence, his proposal would end up cutting the Social Security Trust Fund. And my issue with that isn't that it's inaccurate. My issue is that Representative Larson, why are you pretending like this is a thing that he actually means to do? Like, he's just saying it, man. He's not gonna do it. He's not gonna cut the taxes on that or on tips. I mean, even if he didn't, like, again, the scam here, particularly with the tips, is the only people who would really benefit from those tax changes are people who make way more than the working class people who believe he's talking to them. They are not gonna benefit that. Wealthy hedge fund managers are gonna pay off their bonuses and things. But anyway, I wanna jump to just one more graphic, perhaps the best example of what Walz was saying there about how he doesn't understand working class people. He said in 2019, and I'll never get tired of reminding people of this, if you wanna go out and buy groceries, you need identification. If you wanna do almost anything, you need identification. The only thing that you don't need identification for is to vote. The most important single thing you're doing to vote, you do provide identification when you vote. You don't have like a national voter ID card, but you do. You can't just walk up and be like, I'm Jim. Jim who? Jim, just write me down as a Jim. That's not how it works. That's not how it works at all. And what grocery store are you going to that wants to check your ID? I love that it's been 5 years since then. Not a single right winger has been physically capable of admitting how deeply worrying that statement is. But Francesca, final thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jordan brought up an interesting point about kind of the lane that's been opened by, Democrats and Republicans, consensus around neoliberal economics, which again, we shouldn't confuse with like liberalism. Like neoliberal economics are something that Republicans and Democrats have participated in, and they have also led to, yes, the collapse of national industry and shipping jobs abroad. And sadly, Donald Trump answers that through anti-immigration rhetoric. And if we really were to go with him on this and say, just imagine that, immigrants are taking our jobs because we were all farm workers and then the immigrants came in and we were all displaced. That is obviously not happening. Donald Trump proves how little he knows about farm work this week in the Univision town hall. But the real answer is, well, why would certain workers undercut the jobs of others? Like, wouldn't the labor protections of that industry? And wouldn't the labor protections of those workers ensure their job stability? Isn't the answer not to vilify and demonize one another, but actually to make job protections more robust? Oh, but you want to do away with OSHA? So just like no occupational safety standards whatsoever, no hazard standards. You can breathe in all the asbestos you want and you can't sue your employer for it. Amazing. So this is the reality of it, is the answer to it. And Kamala Harris gets us maybe halfway there, right? And I think to the extent she just tweeted just now that Donald Trump's a threat to the working class and to unions, we need to stand by unions. And I think that was the one part of Biden's legacy that is incredible and important to stand on, is his support of unions. It's like, that's the answer to Trumpism. That's the answer to we need to bring national industry back and slap all these tariffs. It's to have a worker-led, a union movement that actually, yes, make sure there's industry and manufacturing in this country, but doesn't simultaneously start a trade war with China and slap a bunch of tariffs on consumers, or that ultimately fall down on consumers.
Yeah, I think part of this is a messaging issue. And John, you point out that quote from John Larson, who's trying to get into the details on a policy that Trump would never pursue. And I think that's misguided. You're just wasting bandwidth. Like you say, it should just be, this isn't gonna happen. And we know that, we can see that through his actions. Why didn't you do this the first time? Something like that. On the no tax on tips thing, that's clearly geared toward, I don't know about clearly because I just made that connection recently, clearly geared toward winning over people in the service industry in Nevada. It's not nationwide. It's not really going to have, he's not going to pursue it, of course, but it's also, if enacted, it would be structured in a way that would allow wealthy people to restructure their compensation to exploit that loophole.
Yeah.
Harris, if you remember, also proposed something like that would be more pro-worker, and that upset Trump. He said, hey, whoa, she stole my policy. But where has that been? Why aren't they making that a big part of their message? I haven't heard them mention that since. If you're sincere and you really care about that, hammer that point and continue pointing out that one of his signature talking points of this cycle is insincere and you have a better alternative. I haven't heard that since he got upset about it. Where is that?
Yeah, I don't remember. I once or twice I've heard. I don't remember where, which means it's not nearly enough. And to your point earlier, yeah, that's the sort of Trojan horse of that. It's that it's going to be millionaires that are actually benefiting off of this. Harris she wants to do the same thing. And look, I don't even know why this is a thing that all of a sudden everybody needs to focus on. As a person who worked for tips for many years, and also because of low income would not have benefited from this because that's how taxes work. Her plan caps it at $75,000. Like if you make more than $75,000, you can't use this loophole anymore. And so like Trump obviously would never do that. And that kind of reveals the whole point of this. Yeah. In any event, we do need to take the first break of the hour, but when we come back, we're gonna have a little bit of fun. We had the Al Smith charity dinner. Some of the politicians are gonna roast each other. Jim Gaffigan's gonna appear. It should be a lot of fun. Don't go anywhere. Welcome one and all to the social break. For context, what I was saying at the very beginning of the show, in like the 15-20 minutes leading up to the show, I'm a little bit tired. I'm having a lot of anxiety right now, and I was not feeling particularly prepared to do the show. And so for like 5 minutes, Jordan is like trying to coach me through like breathing exercises to get ready and everything. And I'm like joking around, like freaking out even more than I really am. But like I'm trying to get it together. And then like it transitions in for me to say the first thing, and it was broken. And I was like, I don't have the mental fortitude to deal with this right now. I'm hanging by a thread. But anyway, no, it's all cool. It was just hilarious that happened right then.
Did you shriek, I'm hanging on by a thread?
I didn't actually say that. I shrieked it within the confines of my own skull. In any event, let's get to some people's comments. Let's see, Hedgehog Dragon says, I was listening to yesterday's episode of TDR this morning at work, and when you and Nina talked about the interview Donnie did, and how Fox talked about it, I'm now convinced that if Harris and Trump have another debate and Donnie had an uncontrolled BM live on stage, he would still have 45% of the country willing to vote for him, at least. Dreamer says, I just remembered it's Friday and I do have a TYT to watch tonight. Yay, you do, and I hope that you enjoy. We've had a great start to the first hour. We have an amazing second hour prepared as well. Jumpin' Jank Flash, that's a great name, says Jordan with hair? Who knew? You do have good hair.
Is that legal?
Like it's thicker than mine. I like it. I envy those with thick hair. It's very nice. Gabby says, I like Jordan without the hat, but if I send him a Red Sox hat, will he wear it on air?
Yeah, it's one of the baseball teams that I do like.
You do?
Yep, I like the Sox.
Okay, interesting. Okay, Jeremy says, I'm here. Oh man, Jordan without a hat, love your hair. Someone has to say it when Anna isn't here. Has Anna complimented your hair before?
I don't think so.
No, maybe she did when you weren't on air. I'm not sure.
Could be it.
Okay, let's see. Budix Locondo says, I want to read John's book. I assume it's not published yet, LOL. No, it isn't. Again, it's about a mouse going on an adventure. So no, it's not published. But if you know any literary agents, they can email me.
I feel like it should be like Meath, the Meath.
What?
Like the mouse thief, and so call it like the Meath.
I think I've already set myself up to fail quite enough as it is. Thank you.
I think we need to workshop mouse thief, John. Like full disclosure, I just like mouse thief.
It's a mouse who's a thief. The mouse thief.
No, I understand. But I feel like that's
it's in.
That feels like the second chapter.
It's a thing. Anyway, we've talked enough about the mouse, I think. Okay, Dave Schmidt, thank you for gifting a sub on Twitch. I appreciate it. The IT Dragon says, John and panel, how much do you think Harris saying she would legalize recreational marijuana will move the needle politically?
Oh, I mean, people, they've been promised this. Like, just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Do it now.
Light one up.
If
Light
Biden
one up.
did
Put
it
in
now, that would move the needle.
Yeah, Francesca, real fast. Yes.
Biden smokes a blunt, move the needle. Yes.
He had beautiful hair.
Welcome back, one and all, to the Power Panel. Jordan Uhl, Francesca Fiorentini, and myself, John Ederola here. We've got a lot more to get to, and it should be fun. Let's jump into it.
You know, during the first and only debate, President Trump talked about migrants taking cats and eating them. You know, if you're keeping track at home, this is the second time grabbing a kitty has been part of a campaign issue. You know,
we talked about leaving that out.
I was going to leave that out.
I'm glad he left it in. Anyway, that was Jim Gaffigan, who I'm a big fan of. At the Al Smith Dinner, this is an annual Catholic charity event that, when there's a presidential election coming up, is like a big stopping point. It's one of the last big events like it before the election, and generally both of the candidates are there. In this case, that was not the case. Only Donald Trump was there, and I know that because while that clip was playing, many of you were probably watching Jim Gaffigan. I was watching Donald Trump and Melania Trump for their reaction to that, and I will give Donald Trump a little bit of credit. He smiled. He didn't do like what he did at the White House Correspondents' Dinner with Obama, where he's like all frowny and mad. He was smiling a lot. Melania wasn't at all, I noticed, but Donald Trump was playing ball. And we're gonna have a little bit more of that, actually. Now, to be fair, Jim Gaffigan also did do some roasting of Democrats. He said President Biden couldn't be here tonight. The DNC made sure of that, which is a good line. And also, like, they should have been more clear, much more early about Joe Biden. But we want to balance the scales here. And so let's get to Donald Trump, where he actually engaged in a bit of rare self-deprecating humor.
These days, Really a pleasure. Anywhere in New York without a subpoena for my appearance. Anytime I don't get a subpoena, I'm very happy. They've gone after me, Mr. Mayor. You're peanuts compared to what they've done to me. But I know this isn't my normal crowd tonight, because it just isn't. It's not my normal crowd. Believe me, my normal crowd is younger, has a lot more energy. But you have certain advantages too, like cash, lots of cash.
Fine, I guess.
Not a joke.
Okay. The New York one was kind of funny. I mean, like, you know, it immediately made me remember that we were denied justice on virtually all of those cases because of corrupt judges. So there was, you know, the joke was funny. The aftermath was a little bit sad, but Donald Trump almost never does any self-deprecating humor. So I guess that's good, you know, and so consider that as you consider the likelihood that he would take America down a really dark path if the dark day came where he became president once again. But Francesca, you are a stand-up comedian. What do you think so far?
Yeah, the first, the subpoena joke was good, got a laugh. The rest of it weren't jokes. I'm pretty sure that's not scripted. Like, this peanuts what they did to you, Eric Adams. Anyway, let's go to Instable together. Like, that's not really a joke. And then the last one where he was just like, what did he say? I'm blanking because I don't care. But the point is, no, they weren't actually jokes. He's just calling it like it is. You guys have more money. I mean, again, if it were, this is a Catholic crowd. If it were a Jewish crowd, which he has done, he's like, you guys have a lot of money. You're good with money, aren't you? Wink, wink. He's just being honest. He's like, I don't really like my audience because I've been trying to milk them for every piece of merch I can hawk, and a lot of them are tapped out. So they sunk too much into Truth Social. But yeah, I guess it's progress, John. He hasn't appeared at the White House Press Correspondents' Center when he was president, so we'll see. And yet, supposedly, he's always joking. Mass deportations, he's just joking.
Totally. Really fast, by the way, that would have been a good joke if he had then like pulled out like full gold rosaries and been like, and by the way, for $100,000.
Yes.
See, that would have been good. What do you think?
So I'm with Francesca. It wasn't that great. I think some of the other stuff we'll get into, maybe I have a different stance. But he's doing kind of just observational comedy, but without the comedy for the second part. It's like just talking about what he sees in front of him. It's, you're old, you're rich. He liked that. I mean, there was no punchline on that. I think the subpoena line was good. It was surprising to see him joke about it. But I think the point of all of this is it's a roast. And I think Gaffigan's joke was great. And I was also with you, John, watching Trump and Melania. And what you'll see in some of the other clips, if you go and watch some of the other Gaffigan burns on Trump, he's sitting there grinning and Melania looks kind of dour, but I don't think Trump is enjoying the jokes so much as he just likes hearing somebody talk about him. Every time, like if you watch the clips, as Gaffigan is setting it up, like, oh, it's coming back to Trump, and he mentions Trump, he like lights up. He like shifts in his posture. Go watch some of those clips, you'll see it. He just likes that Gaffigan is talking about him.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, and John, you're right about the biggest joke is on the American people because yes, none of the cases have been resolved. None of them, not even falsifying business records, none of it. The Juan Merchan, all that, none of it's been resolved. Everyone wants to wait because they don't want to put their thumb on the scale should he become president.
Yeah.
Somehow we're here, people. Somehow we're here.
100%. Well, he is going to speak some more. We'll have some more of him. Harris was not there, but she did send in a video. Here is a bit of that.
The Al Smith dinner provides a rare opportunity to set aside partisanship.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, what's going on? Who was that?
Oh, sorry, Mary Catherine Elliott. Mary Catherine Elliott. It's so nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you, Mary Catherine. Right now, I'm trying to record my speech for tonight's dinner.
Oh, yeah, I know. I just want to say that I'm Catholic, and tonight is one of the biggest dinners next to the Last Supper.
It is a very important dinner, and it's an important tradition that I'm so proud to be a part of.
Sometimes when I get nervous, I stick my fingers under my arms and I simmer them like that. But that's gross.
So tell me something. I'm giving a speech. Do you have some thoughts about what I might say tonight?
My feelings about what you should say tonight would be best expressed in a monologue from one of my favorite made-for-TV series.
Okay, let's hear it.
Don't you see, man? We need a woman to represent us. A woman brings more heart, more compassion, And think how smart she must be to become a top contender in a field dominated by men. It's time for a woman, bro.
So obviously there's a pre-recorded skit that they sent in. I thought Harris's acting was perfectly fine. I like Molly Shannon. I'm not a big fan of that particular character. Overall, look, there is more to it. I think it was maybe a missed opportunity. Like, I know you have to send in something if you're not gonna be there. She was off campaigning, and as we're gonna get into in just one sec, Trump was making as big of a deal out of that as he possibly could. But for me, it just wasn't quite as good as lines delivered in the hall. But that said, before we comment, let's get to Donald Trump pointing out how utterly disrespectful it is that she's not there.
My opponent feels like she does not have to be here, which is deeply disrespectful to the event, and in particular to our great Catholic community. Very disrespectful. I understand the real reason that she's not here is she's hunting with her running mate, spending a lot of time hunting. In any event, it's a weird. You know the word weird. They call me weird, they call JD weird. We're very solid people. This guy is calling us weird, but this was weird that the Democrat candidate is not here and with us tonight. Catholics, you gotta vote for me. Just remember, you better remember I'm here, and she's not. I could have done that too. But you do something that's incredible, the Catholic Church, you're helping the poor, educating children, and supporting the vulnerable. But if you really wanted Vice President Harris to accept your invitation, I guess you should have told her the funds were going to bail out the looters and rioters in Minneapolis, and she would have been here, guaranteed she would have been here. But I don't think Kamala has given up yet. She hasn't. Instead of attending tonight, she's in Michigan receiving communion from Gretchen Whitmer. That's not a pretty sight.
Yeah, so that was something, I guess. It got a little bit weird in the middle. I think he should probably just read the lines that people gave him. Not all of them necessarily. One of them I think was just written by Stephen Miller. But anyway, he wants to get some sort of advantage out of the fact that he's there and she's not. And so he's pointing out that it's weird that she's not there. Bear in mind, he's canceled virtually every interview he's had over the last few days. But anyway, it's just that he can't do it in a subtle way or in a funny way. He is being utterly explicit to them. I'm here, so you'll vote for me. She's not, don't vote for her. Oh God, can I get out of here? Someone play Ave Maria. Like, he's just being so obvious about the whole thing. So anyway, Jordan, thoughts?
I mean, I don't have as negative of a view of this as you do, apparently, just by watching your reaction to these clips. I thought it was fine, and I think it was a misstep for her not to go. Like, people are going to see, like, people aren't going to buy, oh, I'm out campaigning. Well, yes, Trump is backing out of everything, but you're running for president, you've got all the resources at your disposal, you could make it if you wanted to. And I think it's probably because they're worried she'll come off clunky or be a weird dynamic, but it's fun. It's one of those things, I'm not saying it's inherently important, but it's one of those things just that you do, like going to the Iowa steak fry or going to like different festivals or fairs around the country during the primaries. You go eat your meat on a stick. It's just something that you do. It's weird. It's one of those weird traditions in American politics and in presidential elections. Go. The video, I'm with you. Not a huge fan of the character, although I do like Molly Shannon. Wasn't that good? It wasn't that good. It was just
good.
And then she told no jokes.
I'm with
she
Jordan.
told no jokes. It's a roast. She did zero roasting, and then she went with the, I'm gonna rise above it. We need to heal the country. It's a roast.
There's more to the video, but
there wasn't anything in there.
Yeah, I agree. Love Molly Shannon. I never really liked the character. I don't see why it needed to be rolled out here, but you want to defend, you're the comedian, you're the expert. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that is Molly Shannon's best character. I love Mary Catherine Gallagher. You just don't get her because she's weird. The only problem with that is that it's like 20 years too late. She's quite an older character, but it is funny. And especially it's a little bit of clowning on the church because Mary Catherine Gallagher, this clearly, like out of pocket Asperger's-y like grown woman with like way too short of a skirt does not make the Catholic Church look good. Like it's a little bit of a roast to the Catholic Church too. And I just just want to push back. I don't agree with Jordan. I think that it would look incredibly bizarre to be joshing around with Donald Trump and, taking shots at him and in this sort of like under the auspices of, we're all just elitists raising money here in New York, a state that I'm definitely gonna win. I mean, likely. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's not a smart move. It'll make it look too like just two elites just palling around. However, it would have gotten under his skin had she actually thrown some real jokes in there. Just like I'm assuming he bleated about her. She was able to roast him on the campaign trail when she was heckled by some Trump voters and was like, oh, you're at the wrong rally. You want the smaller one down the street. Mwah. He didn't even have to be there. I think the whole thing was funny. I like the angle of Mary Catherine.
Yeah, maybe if they could have sent like Obama. Nobody's better at roasting Donald Trump than Obama. I think that could have been good. But yeah, I want to move on to I just want to briefly mention, maybe we feel differently about Trump's delivery. Like, I just think the weird thing about they call me weird. They call JD Vance. No, we're solid. No, you guys are freaking weird, especially JD Vance. Like, you're super, super weird. But anyway, he had some other jokes. He said, we have someone in the White House who can barely talk, barely put together two coherent sentences, who seems to have mental faculties of a child. It's a person that has nothing going on, no intelligence whatsoever, but enough about Kamala Harris.
Oh,
you get it? Because like you think he's talking about Joe Biden, who's a much older man, but no, he's asserting that the very intelligent woman of color is low IQ. You know how he calls all black women low IQ? Ha 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 ha. It's funny.
John, that's called a misdirection. I just don't think you understand the joke structure.
But the misdirection still has to make logical sense. Because the only reason he told this joke here is because he keeps, look, he wanted to run against Joe Biden. He wanted to run against somebody he'd say is losing their mind, is low energy, and he doesn't have that. She's doing more events than him. She's far more intelligent than him, but he just conjures up a world that he prefers in which, yeah, I know everybody agrees she's stupid. No, that's just, it doesn't make any sense. But anyway,
I mean, the cat's out of the bag this week, just really quickly, the cat's out of the bag this week on who has like bigger cojones or ovaries, if you will. Kamala Harris was on Fox News and she did a great job. You know what I mean? Like, she went right into the lion's den. He can't even do a 60 Minutes interview because he's afraid of reality. Like 60 Minutes, a big old left wing 60 Minutes. Nah, man, he's like, he wants to do bro podcasts. So, I mean, she's proven herself this week above and beyond.
100%. Like, and she did well enough that he ran to Rupert Murdoch to tell him to not let her on anymore. But anyway, there was one other joke. So Trump said, he's referring to an extramarital affair that Harris's husband had during his first marriage. Said, the only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins is not to let her husband Doug anywhere near the nannies. After many in the room groaned, he added, that's a nasty one. I told these idiots that gave me this stuff, that's too tough. I love how he just constantly insults the people who work for him, like constantly. Teleprompter operators, lighting, whatever. Look, that's, I guess, kind of funny. Again, he's been accused of assaulting so many people that have come into Mar-a-Lago. He's had many affairs. He's lost court cases to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of his affairs and assaults. So I'm not saying that it's not on some level funny, I guess, but you're kind of the worst possible person to make this joke. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not as upset about some of them.
I'm not upset, I'm just critiquing.
No. I just
They're
don't.
not funny.
I think some of them are. I think if you want to.
The subpoenas one, I will give you that. The subpoena one was solid, that's it.
I think there were many more that weren't included that were like decent. Obviously, he didn't write them and he was reading jokes prepared for him. And if you want to go in there with like an open mind, it's a roast. I mean, Gaffigan didn't really pull any punches. I think his whole bit was great. Like his whole segment was great. Trump did some good, some bad. I just wish Harris would have just like, the campaign would have lightened up. Like every presidential candidate does it. All of them do it. For her not to go and then to put out the video and be like, we need to restore, they do this work, we're restoring the soul of the country type stuff. It's like, that's not fun. This is a moment of levity and I don't think people would see it. It is like an elitist thing. I don't think that would really sway people's minds either way. There are plenty of other things that portray them as elitists and out of touch that aren't this event. They all do it. Biden did it, Obama did it, Clinton did it. It's just everyone needs to like it's one of those things like the correspondence dinner. It just happens, you go, it's a roast, it's fun, it's for some philanthropic effort that's ultimately meaningless.
Yeah, I would have preferred that she went. I definitely think that, I mean, I didn't like the video as much as Francesca, so I would have preferred that. But I would say, like of the norms, like Trump is like pointing out, like everybody goes, why won't she go? Like he all of a sudden respects norms. Release her medical records, you doddering old idiot. Like that's a norm. Maybe put your stuff in a blind trust. Maybe do that. Maybe stop committing crimes in plain sight constantly. There are some other norms that maybe we should respect. But anyway, I will say, I thought the Eric Adams thing, it wasn't really a joke, but I did like that he just like basically pointed at Eric Adams and reminded everyone that he's under like serious investigation. That's funny in a meta way. I'll give him credit for that. They didn't have a punchline, but Eric Adams probably wished he wasn't there. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna take our second break of the hour. More to get to after this.
Kamala.
Welcome to our trash revolution.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
Begah!
We were just talking about SNL during the break, and I know it's you like SNL. Francesca's gonna be like boo boomer or whatever, but I like to laugh every once in a while, But anyway, I just want to point out
what?
Ariana Grande she was very funny, and I would not expect like just a pop star comes in to be as her impersonations were very good, and she has many of them. So anyway, go take a look if you want to have a laugh, and if Francesca will allow it. Go check out SNL.
What do you, I'm the one who likes Mary Catherine Gallagher, and
That's
like
true.
Ariana Grande. Come on, just like do one thing. She
Be
says,
talented at
as
just
she's-
one thing.
As she's a pundit and a comedian, but yeah, it's annoying when someone's like whips out like you know what I mean? Like those people are like, oh, now you're also good at karaoke. Come on.
Like if she busted in here and explained like the issues with campaign finance better than all of us combined or something, I'd be like,
yeah, I'd be like, nah.
That was mine. Anyway, okay, well with that, why don't we read some comments? We have a couple of minutes. We have some fun stories coming up. Everyone prepare yourself. Art Guy says, Harris sure has a knack for cringe-inducing videos. She's out there on those streets, girl. Is that a reference to another video? I don't think I saw it. But look, I think she was fine in it. I just like that's what you're going with. Do some roasting. I agree with Jordan. Do some roasting. Don't worry. For balance, Francesca's here to shill for that sketch. Anyway,
God, catching so many strays.
Anyway, Gabby says, yes, the guy who likes to hug flags is weird. That's on you, not us. 100%. The Ave Maria guy, he is weird. That is on you, not us. Okay, let's see. Marley BBY says, yes, Francesca, Jordan, and John. Now that's a power panel. I love it. Cody, the epilepsy dragon, says, Trump wants to have an agility test with Kamala. Like, I would, honestly, any contest of intelligence or athleticism, I wanted to see him do contests against Joe Biden. I'd like to see it with Kamala Harris. Like, honestly, they all believe that he's this rippling bicep Rambo. Literally any contest, anything. Put Tim Walz in there, whatever.
I want it to be one of the like the egg walks, where you have to hold an egg on a spoon and just like go back and forth, like real fair games for like field day games,
100%. Oh man, you imagine like a three-legged race with the tickets against each other? I'd watch that. Stellar Wingman says, if you get rid of tax on overtime, both you and your employer will not pay into Social Security for that income. That's also a good point. Okay, let's see. Anna's Tommy Gun, that's an aggressive name, gifted 5 Young Turks memberships over on YouTube. Thank you for that, super generous of you. Benjamin Morrill, member for 22 months, says, why is Gaffigan so desperate for a gig? I don't think it's desperate, it's a high profile event, and think he did a great job. I love Jim Gaffigan.
profile.
I've always loved Jim Gaffigan. But anyway, more
Getting
news to get to.
paid.
Don't go anywhere. We're
Kamala. Kamala.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to what remains of the first hour. If you're just joining us now, please hit that like button as we jump into our final stories.
I get a call, and they say Tim Cook's on the phone. He calls. He said, "Could I see you, sir?" He's the head of Apple, and I was born in Queens. And I said, "Oh, the head of Apple wants to see me. Let's go." I guess even though I'm president, still I was born in Queens, and the head of Apple's calling. And by that time, it was the largest company in the world. It was about tariffs. He said, "You're charging us 25% because I was going to charge them because we're out of China. And the problem is we can't compete with Samsung because they didn't have to pay tariffs because they weren't in China." I said, "I'm going to give you a waiver." And I gave him a waiver. But I'm going to give you a 1-year waiver, but I want you to start building your plants in the United States. And he said, all right. And he actually did. He built one in Texas.
Okay, so we're gonna divine from that as much as we can, considering all of the slurring and whatever the hell Samsung is. But anyway, that is Donald Trump. He's on the Patrick Bet-David podcast, and he's revealing this conversation that he apparently had with Apple CEO Tim Cook, better known as Tim Apple. But anyway, Tim Cook in the second year of Trump's first term, where he wanted help with these tariffs, basically. And so supposedly, Cook got a waiver on the tariffs as a result. Now we're gonna talk more about this. I love the idea that like personal phone calls with the president results in massive lucrative business deals. I'm not sure that's exactly how it's supposed to work. But anyway, there's more to this. Take a look.
2 hours ago, 3 hours ago, he called me. He said, "I'd like to talk to you about something." What? He said, the European Union has just fined us $15 billion. I said, "That's a lot." I know the feeling because I get fined too in fake cases, but I don't know if his case is fake yet, but it's a lot. Then on top of that, they got fined by the European Union another $2 billion. So he's a $17 to $18 billion fine. I even said about Apple, can you pay that? I mean, do you have that guy? That's a lot of money. And he said something that was interesting. He said they're using that to run their enterprise, meaning Europe is their enterprise. And I said, that's a lot. He said, but Tim, I got to get elected first. But I'm not going to let them take advantage of our companies.
Okay, so on one level, more backroom dealings between Donald Trump and wealthy interests to get him elected, I guess, so that he can hand over billions of dollars worth of benefits to them. At least Donald Trump is so undisciplined that he just babbles about this on podcasts. So that's fun. By the way, the fines that he's referencing there, the EU levied a $2 billion fine in April earlier this year over the company's control of the music streaming industry via the App Store. Basically, it's a monopoly case. They're saying that, and this is not the only one that Apple is facing, but in this area with music, $2 billion. The other $15 billion is in unpaid taxes. And I love that Trump is, first of all, Trump, I guess, doesn't even know what the money is about. He just knows it's a lot. It's like they find me, it's a lot. He talks like an idiot. But anyway, they didn't pay their taxes. And so they're being fined to recover that tax revenue. Trump talks about that. That's how they pay for their enterprise, meaning the EU. Well, yeah, taxes are generally how governments are funded. I don't think it's as illicit as you're implying it is. And bear in mind, Trump has been fined for fraud with his businesses, hundreds of millions of dollars. So there is actually some similarity there, I guess. I just don't know that the relationship that's being described in this podcast is a healthy one or has much to do with helping out Americans that aren't already CEOs of companies. But thoughts?
Well, let's look at his language there and what he's talking about. Oh, they're taking advantage of our companies. Apple, like many American multinational corporations, had a headquarters in Ireland to take advantage of a low corporate tax rate through the double Irish system. That loophole is now closed, thankfully, and they're going back to get all of those unpaid taxes from when that loophole existed and American companies exploited. Apple's tax rate got so low in 2014, they paid 0.005% on profits. Does that seem fair? Do you think paying a little bit more is reasonable for one of the biggest companies in the world? A company now worth multi-trillion dollars? I think they'll be okay. They can afford 12 or 15 billion dollars. But it shows where Trump's priorities are. For this guy, to go back to our first story, the guy who's the savior of the working class, the guy who's from an outsider perspective gonna fight for the working person, what's his priority here? Is it that, hey, whoa, maybe everyone should pay their fair share? No, it's this poor multi-trillion dollar company isn't going to pay less than 1% in corporate taxes anymore. My heart goes out to them. I feel so bad for them. And tariffs, where's the prioritization of the American worker? If they want to have their phones manufactured in China, why aren't you making them bring all of their manufacturing back here? Why is it okay if one of the biggest companies in the world makes their products out of the country? Do you care about workers or not? This would be a perfect opportunity for him to say, well, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to fight for the American worker. And of course, people like Patrick Bet-David don't really care about that. They only care about wealth and finances. No pushback, nothing. Okay, well, whatever. We're moving on.
I mean, yeah, and thank God that Trump was on the Patrick Bet-David show podcast so that he knows, oh, okay, so if I need a favor, I'll just call you. And I guess if you're a businessman or woman who doesn't have your direct line, you're out of luck, right? Like, it's so transactional and transparent so that if something like tariffs were to become a reality under a second Trump administration, it's the multinational corporations, it's the people with the most money, it's the Tim Apples, it's the people with the most power who can get on the phone and call him and get the exemption. But then, smaller businesses, again, who are also probably taxed at a fairer rate. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it creates more consolidation here. That's what you're looking at to see. And it's the same thing with the broader problems with the tax structure writ large. It's billionaires who aren't paying their fair share. And yet a lot of people are making $500,000, $1 million a year. They somehow think that they're in the same boat as, oh, don't tax us. Like, no, bro, you actually are paying much more of your fair share, even though you make more money than a lot of us. It's the billionaires that we're talking about. And so the same thing with these tariffs and the same thing with these businesses. I just want to mention, that apparently Kamala Harris is, and the campaign's advisor, economic advisor, Brian Deese, has been talking about actually retaining Lena Khan of the Federal Trade Commission, a woman who Apple hates. Obviously, Amazon and Google hate because they've actually been sued by the FTC under her leadership. Apple not yet, but again, Apple's faced more music in the EU around, again, unpaid taxes and then USB-C stuff and all of this. So they're terrified. And Kamala Harris literally and Joe Biden are the reason that some of these big tech companies are actually being reined in for the first time.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good sign. Definitely a good sign. Okay, we have just a couple more minutes. I want to make sure that we do at least a little bit of this final story because it's an important one. So let's jump into this. The fossil fuel industry has apparently now given more money than ever before in this election cycle. And you'll never guess to who. Nah, you probably could actually. But anyway, two super PACs tied to the leaders of the Republican caucus in the House and Senate have brought in just tons of money specifically from fossil fuel interests, including companies like ConocoPhillips and CEOs like Tim Dunn. The fossil fuel industry gave more than $20 million combined in the third quarter of this year to the Congressional Leadership Fund and the Senate Leadership Fund. This is according to a sludge analysis. This brings their total this cycle to $54.2 million. That outpaces, by the way, the $32 million that they gave around this time in the 2020 cycle. So not quite twice as much as they did in 2020, but quite a bit of money. And let's just stop for a second. Look, we're gonna focus on this corruption, but just think about the fact that Elon Musk gave 50% more than all of the fossil fuel industry. We are reaching levels of corruption that, like, if you had proposed them a couple of years ago, people would have said you're being like apocalyptic. But that's what's going on. And it reminds me, by the way, earlier this cycle, Donald Trump went to one of these dinners filled with millionaires and billionaires, and he pressed oil executives to give him $1 billion. That's what he wanted. He told a bunch of rich people wrecking our climate to give him $1 billion. And he told them that giving him $1 billion would be a deal according to him, because of the taxation and regulation they would avoid thanks to him. And apparently all of that is legal. Sounds like the most obvious, like cartoonish scale bribery that we've ever seen in our life. Now, they did not scrape together the $1 billion, but it's still 50 million, and that is a good bit. Francesca, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we need to constantly be pointing out. I mean, what sucks about, it is not just that we have to talk about climate change when it comes to, the supercharged hurricanes that we've seen slamming into the southeast of the country, but it's also, we have to talk about the money. And it's the one thing, like, I mean, if the mainstream news is more allergic to something more than talking about climate change, it's talking about money in our politics and how much industry influences our politics. And so to me, I mean, it's really upsetting when Joe Biden touts that no one has been opening more gas and oil wells than his administration. And it's true that we are producing a record amount of oil because we're gonna do the climate change stuff later. Okay, so we have to, I mean, again, it's like bombing for peace, right? When does it stop? At some point, you have to decide to stop it. You have to keep it in the ground. But of course, yes, disproportionately, it does go to the GOP. And so you have to name that. I don't understand why we still live in fear. And I think we're gonna have to think a lot more structurally and boldly when it comes to climate action. The Inflation Reduction Act was a really important step in the right direction, but these reforms are not happening quick enough to stave off the worst impacts of the climate catastrophe. And so in this sense, I think the right is correct that they're like, oh, they want socialism. And it's like, yeah, but that would help. That actually would really help. You can't have infinite growth on a finite planet. You can't allow this amount of wealth hoarding, of private jets, of those kinds of emissions. Wealth hoarding is part of what leads to this amount of carbon in the atmosphere. So it's all connected, bro, whatever.
Yeah, I think the term you were looking for, Francesca, was it's not bombing for peace anymore. It is de-escalation through escalation.
I was thinking that too.
Yes,
updated our language.
Namaste.
But on this point, it's just like such an obvious bribe. It's like they're not even trying to hide it. They don't need to hide it. What's the repercussions? What law is there? What Supreme Court decision? What FEC guideline is there that this would violate? It's just so egregious, and they can do whatever they want, and it's only getting worse. So of course they're just heeding his call. And for Elon Musk, like you say, he relies so heavily on government subsidies for all of his enterprises. Most of their wealth is speculative, or most of their valuation is speculative. And a lot of it relies on continued government subsidies for Tesla and SpaceX and whatever. He doesn't want to be subject to all the unionization requirements for different parts of Biden's policies. So Trump repealing that opens the floodgates to more subsidies, more tax breaks for consumers who want to buy those products, those cars that aren't made by union laborers. So these issues are intersectional. That's why you need to see, and why we should support, obviously, a greener future and policies that would ensure that, but also a strong, robust labor sector, because a unionized workforce is going to create a green future. And that's why we have to see these as intersectional issues.
100%. Well said. That is unfortunately all the time we have for the show. Thank you everyone for joining us for this panel. Jordan, great to have you here. Great to have you here in the building. Francesca, you're always welcome to come, but even remotely, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, check out the Bituation Room, y'all. Everybody, listen where you get your podcasts and stuff, and free Palestine.
Boom. And coming up on the other side of this break, Yasmin Ali Khan will be taking over. Sharon Reed and Jared Jackson will be here. I don't know if that panel has ever been together before, but it sounds awesome. I know I'll be watching, and you should too. We'll see you after this.
Kamala.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crump.
I just want to thank you, man. Educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak truth to power. It makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America. So
listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform, so I won't stop. You won't stop either.
How do you get up in the morning and put your pants on? Kamala?
The ice caps were going to melt, they were going to be gone by now, but now they're setting records, okay? They're at a record level.
disappear, and it's called memory.
Drop it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second hour of the TYT Main Show. I'm Yasmin Khan. I'm going to be hosting this evening. Cenk is not here tonight, but I have Sharon Reed with me. Hi, Sharon. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. It's great to be on with you.
Of course, and I also have JR Jackson. JR, I haven't seen you in forever. We haven't done a show in what, like a year or something? This is crazy. This is a big moment for both of us.
It's depressing. It's been way too long. It's good to see you guys, man. I did see Sharon. Was it, how many weeks ago was that? 2-3 weeks ago, Sharon? We did a show together.
It's all running together with the election and all. I mean, all the ads. I can't keep up. Okay, but it was good to see you.
Yeah, it's always fun. I'm glad when I saw everyone's name on the list again today, I was like, this is gonna be a good hour. I can already feel it.
There, I like that energy. Let's keep that energy.
Yeah,
We're all going to need quite a bit of sass for this next hour because there's a lot of weird, sassy stuff going on. But we are going to start off with Trump brackets. And to kick it off, let's take a look at this.
You know what the event I have now?
No.
A very big event. I'm going to see Rupert Murdoch.
Okay.
That's a big event. I don't know if he's thrilled that I say it.
Please tell him we all said thank you.
I'm going to tell him something very simple because I can't talk to anybody else about it. Don't put on negative commercials for 21 days. Don't put them, and don't put on their horrible people that come and lie. I'm going to say, Rupert, please do it this way.
Right.
And then we're going to have a victory because I think everyone wants that.
And you're going to Outkick next. It's a great channel that we have with Tyrus.
All right, so that was this morning. Trump went on Fox News and made demands of Rupert Murdoch, the owner of Fox News, again, while he was on Fox News. And unsurprisingly, Trump demanded that Fox News never criticize him ever, as if they ever really do, because Trump is so incredibly thin-skinned that even the possibility of criticism is too much for him to handle. But in those moments when Trump thinks that Fox News could do a better job of licking his boots, he does get a little distraught. He does get his feelings hurt. So on Tuesday, he posted this on Truth Social. He said, does Ian Sams, Lion Kamala's special advisor, own Fox News? He is on all the time, as are so many other of her supporters. So ridiculous that Fox allows this to happen right before the election. We will win without Fox, MAGA 2024. Wonder if my mic is on. Good. And then on Monday, he wrote that Neil Cavuto has one of the worst shows on television and the worst rated on Fox News. The people on Fox News, on fake news CNN, are better, which is crazy. Wow. Also on Monday, he posted this. Lion Kamala Harris has wisely chosen Brett Baier of Fox News to do a much needed interview because he is considered to be fair and balanced. I would have preferred seeing a more hard-hitting journalist, but Fox has grown so weak and soft on the Democrats, constantly polluting the airwaves with unopposed Kamala representatives, that it all doesn't matter anymore. You get the idea. Sharon, let's just get some brief, quick thoughts on all of that.
I mean, what can you really say? If he were a comedian, well, if this was his only act, I don't know if it would be funny. It would entertain me for the first 5 minutes. I think when Trump goes on Fox and says the quiet part out loud, it's not even scandalous anymore. It's not scandalous because we've already seen the discovery from that huge $787 million settlement for lying repeatedly. So I think he probably will sit down with Rupert. They'll run the ads because they like the money, but maybe it's true. He won't be criticized for 21 days. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. What do you think, JR?
There's this guy's supposed to be the strong guy. This guy's supposed to be the leader. This guy's supposed to be one that's not too emotional and can handle world leaders. But he's just consistently going on Truth Social, I guess now, and complaining about Fox News. Again, he mentioned Brett Baier, who apparently, this is what I was saying when Brett Baier went on there. He's been noticing the anger and vitriol coming his way because he mentioned a couple of things that were true about Donald Trump to Donald Trump, him and Martha McConnell. So they're being way too soft on these Democrats that come on. I'm just looking for where, I guess, the courage, the forcefulness, the gravitas that they say this guy's got to deal with world leaders. It's just not there. He's very thin-skinned. He can't handle, not even criticism, he can't handle someone talking about him unless they're literally supporting and pushing him further towards whatever lies that he's telling. This is all that he's got. Like, okay, so what is it that you're proposing to do? Where does this fit into you running for president? Because this has nothing to do with running for the election. This has to do with complaining about someone else being on the network that you, I guess, hopes is going to be hard on them, but they're delivering too many truths without the folks on Fox News who are supposed to be journalists not pushing back and just carrying complete water for you, which, again, as you mentioned, they do about 90 to 95% of the time. So to show the fealty that he wants, it's not enough. He needs more. And I guess you have to ask yourself, is this really a leader?
I mean, you talk about saying the quiet part out loud, like he's acknowledging that Fox News is supposed to be good for Republicans and good for Trump. It's supposed to be basically his own personal network that he can use and, put it wherever he needs to. Also, sorry about my technical difficulties earlier. Hopefully my mic sounds a little bit better now. But that brings us to this week's installment of Trump Brackets, where you, the viewers, get to decide the worst thing that Trump has ever said or done. And it's a tough job sometimes. My hat's off to all of you who are participating. These matchups can get kind of tricky. But before we get into it, let's look at this leaderboard. These are the people who are currently in the lead to win a $1,000 prize and a bunch of Harris Walz swag. That sounds pretty cool. Y'all, it's tight. All right, we have in first place Soda Dragon Girl, Zion Hiker, and Used to Party, same, tied for first place with 86 points. Next up, we have Septic Saturn Dragon, not Septic, oh my goodness, Skeptic Saturn Dragon, Fire Breathing Dragon, and Chad, tied with 85 points. And then there is George, Blue Springs Populist, Holly, and Bill, rounding out the top 10 with 84 points each. So you can no longer fill out the brackets, but you can play along at www.trumpbrackets.com. So go check that out if you haven't. And with that, we're on to today's round. This is the last round of the egregious 8. Next week, you'll get to decide between the final 4 or what we're calling the foul list 4. Very clever. But in order to get there, we need you to vote on these contenders. In the first matchup, we have saying his vice president deserved to be murdered versus threatening to target his political opponents if he's reelected. And we have a video for that. Let's take a look.
But wouldn't it be terrible to throw the president's wife and the former Secretary of State? Think of it, the former Secretary of State, but the president's wife into jail. Wouldn't that be a terrible thing? But they want to do it. So, it's a terrible, terrible path that they're leading us to. And it's very possible that it's going to have to happen to them.
Okay. And I'll let you guys respond in a minute. But for the second matchup, we have getting impeached for refusing a peaceful transition of power versus getting convicted of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records to affect an election. All right, JR, rapid fire. What are your choices?
From these two, it's the first one actually a little bit tougher between wanting Mike Pence to be, or being okay with his supporters challenging to murder Mike Pence versus going after political opponents. I mean, it's hard to kind of not say someone being murdered is a problem, but I guess it leads to it both ways, because at least Mike Pence did uphold the unpeaceful transfer of power. So I guess I'll go with threatening to target. I'm sorry, worse being that he wanted his vice president murdered. Let's go there. That's my choice.
And what about getting impeached versus the 34 felony counts?
Yeah, still refusing to the peaceful transfer of power, getting impeached over that. That's definitely one.
Well, all right, Sharon, what are your picks? What do you think?
Vote taken.
The first one, I'm not going to go with Mike Pence, and I'm going to tell you why. Mike Pence knew what he was getting into, okay? He was up under this guy. He called him the P word, too, before that happened. So Mike Pence is a big boy. I don't think it should have happened, but I'm going to go ahead and go with the other one, turning the military against civilians or whatever he said. For the other matchup, I'm going to go with 34 felony counts, right? Do I pick two?
Sure.
And I'm going to tell you why, because I think that anyone could be impeached, okay? Bill Clinton, something about, depends on what the meaning of is, anybody can be impeached. So I think the convictions are more troubling. So let's go there.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Sharon on that last
That's a
bit.
shame.
Yeah, the impeachments, it's very flexible. You can get impeached if you just have a Congress who just doesn't like you. They'll find a reason to do it. But the 34 felony counts, that is pretty egregious, which is appropriate for the egregious 8.
You know what's egregious? Is saying that you guys missed me and then I come on and completely disagree with my choice.
No, you were wrong. You can walk your dog after being impeached. Remember Bill Clinton did that and held Chelsea's hand. She was in the middle and they walked their dog. It was fine. They went out to dinner.
I remember when Clinton was being impeached, I was a kid in the 90s and I was very upset because every morning I would try to watch my Saturday morning cartoons and I couldn't because instead we have to watch coverage of the Clinton. I was
see
like,
how
what?
fast? You see how fast she turned on you, Sharon? You see how quickly she did that?
I'm
The whole
old.
thing.
I wasn't watching Bubble Guppies.
I never promised loyalty. Okay, I'm just here to run the show. All right.
I have a meeting after this with Cenk Uygur, and I'm going to talk about the way that people talk about me on this network.
Please give him my regards. On that note, we're gonna go take a break. All right, we'll be right back.
I put on the blinders. I say, I just do it. I just do it.
Hey everybody, welcome to the break, and we're gonna do some viewer comments. Over on Twitch, Cody the Epilepsy Dragon says, JR, get that hat off, disgusting. JR, care to comment, care to respond?
I did a quick scan, and I saw like 3 to 4 like positive comments about the Leaf set. I mean, the season just started, bro. Now, once the NBA season starts next week, you may not see much hockey from me, but I mean, there's some familial connections I have up in Toronto. There's a responsibility. I apologize, but I'm curious who this commenter's team actually is. We'll find out later, I'm sure.
I guess we'll find out later. I also have familial connections in Toronto, so I got a lot of family up there. I go to Toronto all the time.
It's a fun city.
As much lately. Well, what's funny about that is whenever you have family in a place, I always tend to just go to the suburbs. So I've only been in Toronto proper a couple of times. So I don't really know.
Man.
I used to go to Toronto all the time, go shopping there when I lived in Cleveland. I would just take the drive
It
up.
is great for shopping. Yeah. Well, it's good for when I need like my Indian outfits. I would go to either Toronto or New York or Florida. They have a lot of stuff.
Really?
Yeah. Yep, a lot of brown people in those places. Let's see, over on the TYT member comments. Hi Q Dragon says, yes, as a fellow Texan, I love watching your content. Thank you very much. Any thoughts about Colin Allred? Does he have a chance? I've been praying and donating ever since he announced his candidacy. Keep up the great job. Also, Sharon and JR totally rock. You know what? I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this, but as a fellow Texan, I think we very tentatively get our hopes up for things in this state because a lot of times it'll look like one thing is a guarantee and then someone somewhere will kind of pull something and then it's kind of ripped out from under you. But I will say that Ted Cruz, he's going for his third term as senator. The first time he won by quite like double-digit margins, and then after that, significantly less. And hopefully that margin continues to dwindle. So hopefully we won't have to deal with him for too much longer. Colin Allred seems like very much like an establishment Democrat to me, which could work in his favor. He's not as like scary progressive as Beto O'Rourke was back in 2018, and he's a football player and he's like a strong man. So people like that. If anyone's going to beat Ted Cruz, it'll probably be him. All right, we'll be right back.
He's weird.
Welcome back to the show. I have my power panel here with me. I have Sharon and JR Jackson. I'm glad to have you guys both here.
Good times.
No Cenk tonight also, if you haven't noticed, but we have some great stories. So let's get into this next one. It's actually a bit of an update from a previous story that we've covered here on TYT. You all remember the story about the Tennessee factory workers who were forced to work through Hurricane Helene, which ultimately resulted in 6 workers dying. Well, in a new lawsuit, the company and its CEO are being sued by the family of one of the deceased workers, with a lawsuit claiming that the company's CEO, Gerald O'Connor, stealthily exited prior to the hurricane hitting. How convenient for him. The company is Impact Plastics, based in Irwin, Tennessee. And according to the lawsuit, the workers were denied requests to leave ahead of the hurricane, and they were told that they needed to stay in order to meet order deadlines. Meanwhile, Tennessee and neighboring states were all bracing for the hurricane, which was forecast to be deadly and dangerous. And the factory specifically was under a flash flood warning. As for the company's CEO, O'Connor, quote, stealthily exited the building out of the back door while other workers were trapped inside the factory. And the suit alleges that 11 workers from Impact Plastics were swept away in floodwaters, and 6 are confirmed to have perished. And the family's lawyer has said Impact Plastics was aware of the flood risks, and while employees requested permission to leave, the company failed to act. We will hold them accountable. As for O'Connor, he released a video. I think calling it an apology video might be a bit of a stretch, but he did have some things that he wanted to get off his chest. We can't actually show you the video for copyright reasons, but here are some of what he had to say regarding the incident. He started off by introducing himself, and then he leapt right into this. It says, due to death threats against me and my family, and to reduce the stress on local law enforcement that now needs to be focused on recovery operations, I'm with you by this video. The flood of September 27th took from our Impact Plastics family some great employees. We are heartbroken about our loss and will keep those who have now passed in our hearts forever. He continued, following that day, I ordered an immediate review of the events and the timeline of what occurred that morning, beginning as soon as the last surviving employees and a count of those who are missing were addressed. With help from the National Guard, we were able to help secure the rescue of 5 of our employees by helicopter. Today, we share that preliminary report with the public. The findings are that employees were told to leave the plant at least 45 minutes before the gigantic force of the flood hit the industrial park. There was time to escape. Okay. He went on, employees were not told at any time that they would be fired if they left the plant. After checking to make sure everyone was out of our plant and to rescue important files, I was one of the last people to leave the plant and luckily escape. To our knowledge, no one perished while on company property. My company will cooperate fully with the inquiries from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the Tennessee Occupation and Health Administration in days ahead. For now, our focus is on our employees. Should have been on the employees back when the storm was hitting. And perhaps no one perished on company property, Gerald, because they were swept away in the floodwaters. I got a lot to say about this, but I'll start with you, JR. What do you think?
Okay, so I watched the video of it, and Yasmin, you had to read through what he said. You had more empathy and compassion and energy behind what you were saying and reading it than he was when he was also reading it, because he doesn't give a damn. Okay, I'm gonna make a bunch of assumptions, but so I'll try and since I wasn't there, I'm gonna have to put it in a way that I think it seems. So he comes forward and he talks about how he's receiving these death threats. So first off, feel bad for me. I made it, but feel bad for me because 6 of my employees died. And also the law enforcement officials and I have been working on this. So in other words, the cops are on my side. So I automatically have this higher level of reliability on my story that I'm gonna tell you. Because their attorneys, the people that are suing this guy, his attorney was talking about complete opposite story than what this guy is talking about. Also, he lost a personal friend. This is all through this apology. He lost a personal friend in the floodwaters as well. So again, I have a personal connection to this. I'm mourning as well. Please don't come at me. He was one of the last ones to leave, he says. But also there's this investigation about what happened once we left. Bro, I thought you were there. He's trying to protect his business. And anybody that has a business would try to protect their business. But in the meantime, maybe you also protect your employees while that business is also seeing these devastating floodwaters come their way. Whatever else is coming from this investigation should probably find out why 45 minutes that you claim is what they needed, or you gave them the time to leave and no one was threatened with any firings. Was that enough time? Was it? Maybe they only gave them 45 minutes and that just wasn't enough time. That wasn't clarified in the explanation video, which is not the apology. I'm sorry, Sharon, 1 or 2 more things. He said he fell in love with the city. There's another part of it. He said, I fell in love with the city of Irwin, I think it is where it was. I fell in love with the city back in 1987 when I decided to put my plant here. And we're looking forward to maybe, hopefully in the future, rebuilding my plant. And then again, offering a good jobs for people in the community. Again, another nod to city leaders to maybe be like, yo, this guy brings in money to the city. This guy has employees that he hires from the city. So maybe we have a good reason to not punish him for potential shortcomings, or maybe an evacuation plan, things like that, that again, the lawsuit says was not in place. So somebody's lying, because there's 2 completely separate stories. In our country, the rich person has a little bit more clout, has more credibility than someone who's poor, because we'll say, I'm not even gonna say poor, working class folks, because maybe they're out to get something. We never think that, what if the rich guy is out to get something, like saving his ass, or saving, trying to keep from losing more money, or having to pay out folks that then they were neglectful towards because they didn't think, not that he thought, oh, I don't care if these folks die, but maybe like, we'll hold them on a little bit longer, they'll make it, it's okay. Yo, that's a big mistake. Maybe you treat them like folks that matter, like yourself, and get out of there. Sorry.
All right, Sharon, what you got?
Well, they don't matter. And I'm right with you, brother. Everything you said, and then some, JR, they don't matter. And if I'm deciding on who's lying, I vote for the buffoon with no soul. I don't know why he would even talk about 45 minutes. We all saw the coverage. It was wall to wall leading up to Milton. And about 24 hours before, the officials were already warning people, saying things like, you will die if you stay. You will die. No one will be able to rescue you. I mean, perhaps those who died, if we are to believe this part of a statement, weren't on company property because their bodies literally floated away. This is sick. He does not care about the employees. He doesn't really care about what anyone thinks or any advice he might get from a messaging team, clearly, because that seemed like the script was written solely by him or out of work SNL writers. That's how ridiculously ignorant it is. And you know what? He'll probably get away with it. Precisely because of that last part that JR mentioned.
Yeah,
I've done a lot of good in this town. I've spent a lot of money. I brought a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the fact that it was written down and that's what he decided to, he drafted it and that's what he decided to go on camera with. The fact that he mentioned that none of them died on the property. is unbelievable. And yeah, like there's a few things that stood out to me about the statement overall. And I'm sorry if this is a little bit repetitive, but yeah, he did point out first that he was getting death threats, even though he is now seen to be responsible for the actual deaths of 6 people who he was responsible for, frankly. I don't know who he's expecting to get any sympathy from with that statement, but whatever, He said that the workers in the factory were like family to him. Nope, don't believe him. And we all know and recognize it now that it's kind of a toxic trait in a business. He also said that the workers were given the 45-minute thing is insane to me. That is not enough time to escape a storm, especially a storm that is already there. It's already hitting you. It's called a flash flood for a reason. These conditions can change so quickly. They're incredibly dangerous. All 3 of us, we all live in hurricane-prone areas now. JR, I know that you're new around these parts, but anyone who lives here knows that these storms are not to be messed with. They are serious. They are giant. They are getting stronger. And it's all about preparation. Living in an area like this, you have to know how to deal with these storms, and you have to know how to get out of the way, how to save your property as best you can, but how to save your own life as best you can. And making sure that workers are working in a factory in the middle of a hurricane is not what you're supposed to do. And, since he didn't close down his factory, he was so concerned about those work deadlines that he apparently could not afford to miss, but those deadlines were undoubtedly missed after all. And he seems to be not on the brink of financial collapse. And now he's down 6 workers, right? So he's in a much worse position now than he was at the beginning of all this. And hopefully more of his colleagues, more of their colleagues will leave and quit this toxic work environment if they haven't already. And not only that, but there's the other issue that he has also cost the taxpayers in Tennessee money by having to involve the National Guard and arrange for helicopter rescues of the employees that he had trapped in the factory. And he risked the lives of all of those rescue workers unnecessarily. That is one of the things that I don't know if that gets talked enough about outside of these specific flood-prone areas. But whenever you have people who did not evacuate when they should have for whatever reason, it is a risk because somebody has to now go and rescue them. And it is a big strain on resources, and it's dangerous for those rescue workers. So any final thoughts from either of you before we get a break?
Sorry, one last thing, because one of the victims, Johnny Peterson, he ran off, it says in the story, he ran off of company property to jump on top of a semi truck or some truck to try and save himself. So that's the thing about, to my knowledge, which he said in the statement, to my knowledge, no one died on company property because he ran away.
Yeah. So, all right, we're gonna take a break. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome to the break. Let's look at some of these viewer comments. This is kind of fun. Okay, so let's see. From the TYT member comments, don't shoot, I'm the goalkeeper says, my old commute took me 45 minutes to an hour. They should not have been forced to go to work in the first GD place. Can I say that word? Yeah, it's unbelievable. I saw 45 minutes, and then he said they had time to leave. No, you do not have time. It's unconscionable.
People get evacuated the day before many times. Sorry.
Yeah. Like even that would have been a stretch. Like I can't imagine being forced to go into work for something like that. Tuffy, the dragon trainer, says, JR, yes, miss you, bro. So glad to see you back. Please come on more often. And love seeing Sharon and Yasmin too. Always love your perspectives. Yeah, JR, where you been?
I mean, I just keep calling. I keep sending emails. I'm texting producers. They keep telling me no.
They're like,
Stop.
I'll have a chat with the bookers on your behalf. Wong Jun says, I love watching the watch list, but it's great to see JR on the main show again. You got a lot of fans out here. Nadius Maximus says, this panel has so much power. It is draining the electrical grid and making He-Man feel both powerless and swordless. Wow, what a comment. What a comment. Yeah, well, at least here in Texas, the word is that we're going to be reconnected to the national grid at some point soon.
Oh,
so
wow, finally.
That'll be better for us. At 36 Chambers Dragon said, this is one good looking panel, if I do say so myself. Thank you very much. JR is doing a lot of the heavy lifting there. Eclectic Miscellany.
He knows it.
I'm coming in third.
Nah, come on.
It's the hat. The hat's doing a lot of favors for you. Eclectic Miscellaneous says, the bad news, I'm currently listed as number 265 in the brackets. The good news is that I'm tied with John Idarola in terms of points. Wow, how embarrassing for John.
Oh my goodness, it's wonderful.
Oh my goodness, okay. Jonah Thon over on Twitch says, I can be your family in Toronto. Love y'all. Thank you. It's always nice to have family, to have connections in places.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to the TYT main show. I'm Yasmin Khan, and I'm here with Sharon Reed and JR Jackson. This is a fun story. Let's get into this next one.
But they build everything in Germany, and then they assemble it here. They get away with murder because they say, oh, yes, we're building cars. They don't build cars. They take them out of a box and they assemble them. We could have our child do it.
I challenge you, Trump, to one full 12-hour day in any auto assembly plant. I want to see you assemble parts out of a box for 12 hours.
All right, so a UAW auto worker has officially challenged Donald Trump to hop up on the assembly line after he belittled their work during his interview at the Economic Club in Chicago. During the interview with Bloomberg editor-in-chief John Micklethwaite, Trump got on the topic of how cars are not actually being built in the United States, and he also wanted to talk about his tariff plans. Let's take a look.
I said to Angela Merkel when she was there, she's not there anymore, I wonder why, but when she was there, I said, Angela, how many Chevrolets do we have in Berlin? Why, Donald, you have none. He said, that's right. How many Fords do we have in Frankfurt? I don't know, none. I said, that's right. You know how many cars we have? Mercedes-Benz, BMW, all of the different Volkswagen, millions and millions of cars. And then I said farm products. You know, they don't want our farm. They don't want anything from us. We have deficits that are crazy. And we're not going to have them anymore. We're going to put tariffs on them, and they're going to do, and you know what they can do? The Mercedes-Benz will start building in the United States. And they have a little bit. But you know what they really are? Assembly, like in South Carolina. But they build everything in Germany, and then they assemble it here. They get away with murder because they say, oh, yes, we're building cars. They don't build cars. They take them out of a box and they assemble them. We could have our child do it.
Yeah, so that's kind of the crux of Trump's proposed tariff plan, that, you know, he's going to jack up these tariffs so high that all these international companies it's going to be way too expensive for them to ship anything over here. So they're just going to set up shop here in the United States and just make everything here in the United States, even though Mercedes-Benz is, everyone knows that's a German company and they're not moving over here. Anyway, it didn't take long for the Kamala Harris campaign to use this in their next attack against Trump. And they tweeted this earlier this week, that Trump belittles auto workers, saying they just assemble parts out of a box, and says children could do their jobs. We could have our child do it. That's a quote from him. But really, things heated up after the UAW responded to Trump's comments and challenged him to get on the line. If the work is so easy, just do it.
Hi, my name is Donya Ferdinandson with UAW Local 14 of Toledo, Ohio. I am an 18-year UAW member in good standing. I'm making this video in response to Trump's statement that auto workers just assemble parts out of a box. I challenge you, Trump, to one full 12-hour day in any auto assembly plant. I want to see you assemble parts out of a box for 12 hours. Until you accept and complete this challenge, until you actually work a manual labor job, you keep the name of the UAW out of your mouth. Solidarity, y'all.
Oh my goodness, that was incredible. You know, Trump is the definition of a Nepo baby, which is, I guess, fine if you just accept what that means, you know, that he has never actually done a day of hard labor in his entire life. He only has ever worked for the Trump organization. He's not going to work 12 hours. He doesn't even know what that means. He can't even like wrap his head around that, but he is seemingly willing to give another job a go. He's going to be a fry cook at a McDonald's, maybe. This is according to CNN's Kristen Holm. She said former President Donald Trump is expected to visit a McDonald's Sunday in Pennsylvania and work the fry cooker. A source familiar with the matter tells CNN this comes up as Trump has repeatedly claimed Vice President Kamala Harris never actually worked at McDonald's. Okay, the Trump and the Harris camps have recently been at war over Harris's assertion that she worked at McDonald's while she was in college. Why? Like, who cares about any of this so much? Trump has called the story fake, claiming that Harris never worked at the chain based off of nothing, of course. But for some reason, he did offer to work at McDonald's to really stick it to Kamala, I guess. I don't see how it would. I can't imagine that she cares about any of this. He initially made these claims last month at a rally in Indiana, saying, quote, I'm going to go to a McDonald's and I'm going to work the French fry job for about half an hour. I want to see how it is. Okay. Going to work the French fry job. According to The Independent, Trump's campaign has allegedly spent $31,000 at Mickey D's in the last few months. So we already know that he is a big, big fan of them. He also likes to eat at McDonald's because he thinks that he won't get poisoned if he eats fast food, which, you know, the logic is not completely unsound there. But the minutes-long shift, 30 minutes, he said, would prove that he's worked longer and harder at McDonald's than Kamala Harris, because that's really gonna show her, right? Sharon, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, my thoughts are to that McDonald's in Pennsylvania, beware, he'll eat up all the profits on the fry machines and the Diet Coke. They'll run out. No more syrup. Let me tell you something.
The McFlurry machine?
He's never worked, forget labor, you know, working with your hands. He has never worked a full shift in his life, not without Diet Coke and people bringing in the Music Man to soothe him. This is corny, ridiculous. He just wants to spend time at McDonald's. And I think it was great that UAW worker proud and strongly called him out, because this is what we're dealing with here. I am, though, in all seriousness, not to sound too much like Michelle Obama, who got in trouble all those years ago on the campaign trail, I am ashamed. I'm actually ashamed that this is still a toss-up, this race, when we are talking about this guy who is clueless, cruel, has some kind of faculty issue, diminished capacity, has threatened all of us. He threatened all of us, including the people who are going to his rallies and dropping like flies because it's so damn hot in there, okay? And in the previous run, remember, we lost people like Herman Cain because of Trump's insistence on not wearing masks and the thing. So he is who we thought he is, okay? It reminds me of Herman Edwards. The Bears are who we thought they are. We let them off the hook, okay? I don't know why we're still allowing this guy to suck up oxygen that good people could be breathing. That's how sick it is. We need to take a look at ourselves, America. Look at your life and not this buffoon. He's going to eat up all the profits. McDonald's, Pennsylvania.
Sharon, it was Denny Green. We let him off the hook.
Oh,
I got
Denny
you.
Green.
But
remember those great Coors Lights commercials? Oh, that was great.
Oh, yeah.
I love those. But you're right. Sorry, Herman.
No,
but you got the point, JR.
Yeah, I did. I didn't want you to get flamed in the comments because they come for you for these little things. But no, what you're saying leads directly to what I was thinking. Why do we give a damn what Donald Trump says about what anybody does in the assembly line at an auto workers plant? What the hell does he know about that? Why do we think he has anything to say about that anybody should listen to? They already give him the businessman thing, which was obvious he's failed at that so many times that we can't even count anymore. Why do we care what he says about what they do at an assembly plant when he's never stepped his foot in one? Why do we keep doing this? Because this race is this close, because it has nothing to do with what he knows, what he does, and what he can do, because none of those things are very good. It's about trying to support someone that is fed enough of your bigotry that you feel like you live through him as this leader that's willing to rule with an iron fist. It's the only reason that this is even close in this way. We had previous presidential and vice presidential candidates who destroyed their entire run. Mitt Romney damn near lost because he said binders full of women. That was a scandal. Think about the difference between him saying binders full of women.
Who yelled and that was it. That was the end of his.
Howard Dean.
Howard Dean.
Thank you.
Small things. Dan Quayle couldn't spell potato or something like that. Michael Dukakis wore the stupid helmet in the tank. These things disqualified folks. Think of the hundreds of thousands of things Donald Trump has done that has not disqualified him yet. That's an indictment on us, not him.
Thank you. That part.
Yeah, we've just been so incredibly desensitized to everything that he says and does that, somebody who, stands up on a rally platform, he's supposed to be doing some kind of town hall. Instead, he just listens to music for 40 minutes. And that's not
that would have killed somebody.
Like that alone is so crazy. Like, I don't understand. I don't know what's going on in this country. Maybe someone can explain it. I mean, I have an idea. I obviously have an idea, but I'm just so incredulous about it all. But on that note, we are going to get into our next story. Let's roll the tape.
The most senior Republican official in Congress, the Republican Senate leader, caught on tape, his own recordings no less, describing his party's presidential nominee, Donald Trump, as a, quote, despicable person.
Sorry, I was reading some comments. We've known for some time now that Mitch McConnell is no fan of Donald Trump, but according to an upcoming book, Mitch McConnell had even more harsh words for the de facto leader of the GOP than we realized. And be sure to stick around because, the best part of this story is that Mitch McConnell has responded to the comments in the new book that he has said. Before we get there, though, let's hear more of what McConnell had to say about Trump.
A new book by Associated Press Washington bureau chief Michael Tackett reveals this, quote, Mitch McConnell said after the 2020 election that then President Donald Trump was, quote, stupid, as well as being ill-tempered, a, quote, despicable human being, and a, quote, narcissist. And he said all that. That's what Mitch McConnell thought of Donald Trump before the insurrection. More from the AP. Privately, McConnell said in his oral history that, quote, it's not just the Democrats who are counting the days until Trump left office, and that Trump's behavior only underscores the good judgment of the American people. They've had just enough of the misrepresentations, the outright lies, almost on a daily basis. And they fired him. And for a narcissist like him, McConnell continued, that's been really hard to take. Now, before those Georgia runoffs, McConnell said Trump is, quote, stupid as well as being ill-tempered and can't even figure out where his own best interests lie.
Damn.
Yeah, so despite McConnell's private feelings about Trump, he has, of course, publicly endorsed him for the president of the United States, even though he is all these terrible, terrible things, including a narcissist. When asked about his comments in the upcoming book, this is what Mitch McConnell had to say. He said, whatever I may have said about President Trump pales in comparison to what J.D. Vance, Lindsey Graham, and others have said about him, but we are all on the same team now. In other words, don't worry about what I'm saying over here. They're all just as bad, if not worse than me. it's really, really sad because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what Mitch McConnell has said about Donald Trump because he is the guy on the ballot still. And, at least in part, he's on that ballot because people like Mitch McConnell allowed him to get such a strong foothold in the Republican Party, or they didn't do enough to stop him. I don't know what they could have done. Maybe there was nothing. A lot of the Republicans who were opposed to Donald Trump initially, they had to kind of fall in line behind him because the public was so vocal in their support for him. But Sharon, what do you think? Is this going to change anything for anybody, or this is really nothing new, though?
Well, it's nothing new in a couple of points. I think Mitch McConnell is stupid, and I think he's despicable. I think Mitch McConnell is despicable because if he really believed all those things, why did he vote to keep this monster safe? Why did he protect him so much? Mitch McConnell could have easily lost his life too. I think he's probably a narcissist as well. This great architect, this lion of the Senate. He's not great. He's a wimp. And if he was such an architect, he would have figured out how to get rid of this virus called Donald Trump. The other thing is, I don't believe that these are leaks or accidentally overheard statements. I think this is an attempt to have your cake and eat it too, to rewrite history, to be against all the bad, but there for what they deem the good. Oh, we got this conservative Supreme Court. Mitch McConnell needs to go have several seats. We know who Donald Trump is. What about who you are, Mitch?
Thank you, Sharon. Oh my God, this guy Mitch McConnell bragged about how he helped Donald Trump stack the Supreme Court so they could do all these things that they're now doing. One main thing being Roe versus Wade currently right now. Bragged about how he made sure to block Obama's appointment so that he can usher in Donald Trump. When asked if you do the same thing for Donald, or as far as Donald Trump, and then the next election coming up, he said, absolutely not, because I was setting this whole thing up to help promote exactly what I want to do. Mitch McConnell has a history of one of his main objectives being to flip the court, because that does many things across the board. So also when he went after his Mitch McConnell's wife and called her a bunch of racist names because she's Chinese, all these things just stacked on top of themselves. He was another Ted Cruz. He doesn't care because what he was putting in place was his own positions of power. Now that he's leaving, he's retiring now because he can no longer speak. He was still the reason why he helped try to get by anything that Donald Trump did with January 6th, after admitting that it was Donald Trump's fault, was because he was concerned about those last 2 Senate seats that they did lose in Georgia. Because Mitch McConnell, guess what body he's part of? Senate. He didn't want to lose his power as the lead of the Senate. That was his issue. And when that went away, he's like, okay, I've got nothing else to do here. I've gotten all these Supreme Court justices in that flipped everything that we're hoping to flip. And I lost my power over the Senate. I don't need to be here anymore. He doesn't care. And by the way, he said, we're all on the same team now. Is he talking about he's on the same team with Lindsey Graham and those other guys now, or he's not on the same team with Donald Trump? Because Lindsey Graham and those guys are back on Donald Trump's team, just like you are, Mitch.
Yeah, it's party over country, and it always has been with a lot of these Republicans. Mitch McConnell, in a lot of ways, is kind of the poster child for that sentiment. And you're absolutely right. He just wanted somebody who is a Republican, so they can say, we have the majority, we have the executive branch, we have the congressional branch, we have all these things, and we even have the judicial branch. De facto, like we basically own the Supreme Court at this point as the Republicans. And it's really sad because somebody like Mitch McConnell is going to come out and say all these things. Maybe he'll deny it. He didn't really deny it. He just said, yeah, I said it, but they also said other stuff. But what we're going to see, what I imagine we will see once Donald Trump is no longer in our public political life, however that happens, whenever that happens, a lot of people are going to come out and say, I never liked him, and they're going to want to sell a book. And I'm saying you should just not buy those books because they're obvious cash grabs. And these people don't deserve to be rewarded for not saying anything or for saying something after the fact. Like, congratulations, you said the thing that we all knew, and you were the one who was in a position to do something about it, about all these terrible things, about how terrible of a person he is, about how terrible of a leader he would be to the American people, not just to the people in this country, but around the world, because the United States impacts so many people around the world. Everybody knows that. And, it's very cowardly. I think that's the word I'm going to go with. It's very cowardly to sit back after the fact and say, I always knew this was a bad a bad idea. I never liked it to begin with. Yeah, but you supported it and you didn't speak out when you could have. You didn't do anything when you could have because you wanted the power that came with it. Any final thoughts from either of you before we wrap up this first hour?
Sharon, you always got something to say.
Well, and I'll go quick then. I think they should all shut up. Don't buy any of their books. That goes for Kevin McCarthy, Mike Pence, who is not a hero. Okay, you palled around with this bigot, this misogynist, this disgusting person, okay? You palled around with him and hitched your giddy up because you wanted personal gain. You thought one day you would occupy the Oval Office. You'd be set up just beautifully. Forget about, I think even people like Cassidy Hutchins and Alyssa Farrow. They're not heroes. They stayed until the Titanic was going down. He was racist. He was ignorant. He did all of these disgusting things. People died because of this guy and his mishandling deliberately of COVID. So I don't think any of these people deserve their spots on The View or their publicity tours, their book tours, and liberal media propping them up. These people need to make amends, not money.
Yeah.
As we see stuff go down, we'll see how it works. The last thing this guy was saying was he's against Trump's and his tariff plan, because I think that'd be a bad idea. He said it's so milquetoast and so bland, it wasn't even a point to make. So that's talking about the future of the country and the things that this guy wants to implement. If anyone heard Mitch McConnell talk about the tariff plan, it was for about 4 to 5 seconds, and that was it. He doesn't say a lot because he honestly doesn't care. It's about himself.
He doesn't have to say a whole lot anymore. But JR, with that, sorry to cut you off, but we gotta go. We're done with this first hour. So thanks for being here. We will see you all in the bonus episode. Be right back.